Yes, this is David Birdsall.
Hey, David, how are you?
How are you?
Paul, I see you. How are you?
Good.
Welcome, gentlemen. So you are proposing a 6% increase for the village of Mamaroneck. Could you go through the particulars?
Yeah, we'll run through the presentation. I'll try and share the screen for you.
Okay, there you go. It's up.
Okay. All right. As you noted, the proposed water rate increase for the village of Mamaroneck is 6%. The primary driver, as we go forward, there are others, but the primary driver is debt service costs associated with water infrastructure and capital projects. As you know, we presented not too long ago the 5-year capital plan, which included $126 million in joint water system capital projects. Plus, we had mentioned that on average, we expect, or at least based on experience in the past, there will probably be $1 million or $1.2 million or so in local projects, most of them related to transite and undersized water main replacement. But there also is some infrastructure, non-functional vulnerable infrastructure replacement related to paving programs in the municipality. That's where we go out ahead of the basically broken valves and other issues, lead service lines, etc., or service connections.
David, can I just ask you to speak up a little, please?
Sure. So we had presented the capital plan, which, as I say, had included $126 million in joint project, as well as the local projects that are noted on the slide. Is that better?
Yes.
With respect to the Westchester Joint Waterworks 2020 budget, typically what we do in our budget process is we forecast our budget based on a quote-unquote normal water usage year. The last 3 years have been relatively cooler and wetter than the typical conditions we have, so the water usage has been somewhat lower. But for purposes of budgeting, we use that normal water year. And what we try to do in the process is to arrive at a bottom line figure that will provide for not only our operating costs and any increases in New York City does on water rates, but also provides for the debt service costs associated with the financing that's done by the member municipalities of our water capital project. So again, going down the slide, budgeted water sales and water purchases, again, are budgeted at a normal year level, and on an aggregate basis for the Westchester Joint Waterworks, that's about 4.5 billion gallons of water, roughly. Based on the latest analysis that was available from New York City, they have yet to what the proposed rate increase is for 2020, which is typically done at July 1. But based on their latest analysis, that rate increase would be in the neighborhood of 3.5%, assuming they don't make any major shifts. And we know in the past that has happened. Actually, they have proposed higher rates in instances, depending on what their financial position was. The other important issue with respect to 2020 budget is the operating costs for the Westchester Joint Waterworks, excluding the water purchases from New York City, are actually budgeted to be down about 1% from the 2019 actual. Looking at the Waterworks overall budget on the left on this slide, and on the right, what the Village of Mamaroneck component of that is. So in our budget, we had baked in some assumptions related to water rate increases for the member municipalities, as well as our wholesale customers and outside districts. As you can see on the expense side, you can see the relative breakdown of water purchases relative to our treatment and distribution costs and general administrative costs. So again, looking at, oops, sorry about that. The Village of Mamaroneck component is roughly about 28% or so of the overall budget. Now, the potential income available for distribution in 2021, again, for the total organization is about, included at about $4.9 million. The Village of Mamaroneck share of that is approximately $1,350,000 on this basis. And looking at a breakdown of water rate increase as well as what was assumed in the budget, New York City, you can see for the last 20 years has averaged about 8.4% in water rate increase on average. The Village of Mamaroneck is 7.7%, Town of Mamaroneck 7.4%, and the Town Village of Harrison about 6.9%, again on average annually. The rate increases that we assumed in our budget, again for New York City, was 3.5%. The Village is 6%, based on, you know, again, that targeted bottom line income to fund debt service costs and to potentially provide for other financing flexibility with some additional water fund balance potentially. The Town of Mamaroneck was budget or included in the budget at 3%, and the Town Village of Harrison at 9%. Now the member municipalities set their rates independently, so everyone's starting point and experience over the course of the years is somewhat different. That's why the assumed rate increases vary somewhat from one member to the other. Now, at the bottom of the slide, we show what the impact is to the average Village of Mamaroneck water bill for household use. And this assumes a typical, again, household use consumption figure for a family of 4, not including any irrigation. So in 2017, that figure was around $780 a year. In 2018, the village did a 2% rate increase. So if you annualize that, the bill comes up to about $796. There was no 2019 increase. And based on the 6% increase that we're proposing, that $796 bill will go to roughly $844. And if you look at that increase on an annual basis, it's $47.75. Monthly, it's about $3.97. And then on a per day basis, 13 cents per day. There are a number of items that I'd like to speak to with respect to the water rate increases. Again, I had mentioned that we are looking at, or we've been looking at things based on the 5-year capital plan, because that has a heavy influence here. Obviously, from the time the budget was done, things have changed a bit in the world, and we recognize that, as everyone else does. With respect to the timing of a water rate increase, and also the timing of some of those capital expenditures are going to be somewhat different than what was originally anticipated. So looking at the 6% increase, that is what we consider to be a comfortable rate increase figure to meet the requirements as we move forward from here, as far as providing enough coverage for the debt service costs that are on the horizon, to begin to do that, and to cover what other near-term expenses are assumed within the budget as well. So that's my summary and of where we stand with respect to the water rate increases and what's influencing that or resulting in that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just wanted to clarify something. The page 3 of the PowerPoint,
Yes.
allocated revenue, $1,350,000. That goes back to the Village of Mamaroneck waterfront from the ratepayers. Is that right? And then we use that hopefully to offset the cost of the project. Is that true?
Actually, what in the revenue category, you have direct water revenues, which are the metered water revenues for the most part that are determined based on the water rates in the municipality. The allocated revenues are related to wholesale customer revenues as well as outside districts, in this case, Greenhaven and New Rochelle. We have about 350 customers in Greenhaven and about 70 or so in New Rochelle. So those revenues are allocated amongst the member municipalities,
Right.
the water purchases. So that becomes part of the total revenue figure.
Okay.
So just following up on that, that means that the revenues are commingled, but they're tracked separately or not?
Well, basically, any of the revenues and operating expenses are allocated on the basis of the number of gallons sold by each member municipality. So for the Village of Mamaroneck, that works out to roughly 27 or 28% on average, anyway, of the total gallons of water sold by the members.
And that's based upon usage, not population.
That's correct. And as I say, the direct metered water revenues, those are recorded for each municipality. They are not allocated. So that's that top line figure.
So who sets the rates for Greenhaven and Larchmont or whatever?
The outside district rates for the portion for Greenhaven and a portion of New Rochelle, those actually follow the rates of the adjacent municipalities for the most part. So Greenhaven follows the Village of Mamaroneck rates, and New Rochelle, the town of Mamaroneck rates. They vary principally based on a infrastructure tax recovery charge, because New Rochelle and Rye do charge us some infrastructure related tax, so that's recovered from the customers in those areas, as well as any major capital project that's undertaken in that area.
Okay, but I'm lost. Who's actually setting the rates?
Well, again, the historical rate setting that's been done with respect to that, it would be related to the adjacent member municipality. So the rate that's being used, again, in those outside districts is based on the rates that, in the case of Greenhaven, the rates that Village of Mamaroneck sets, and in the case of New Rochelle, the rates set by the town of Mamaroneck.
Okay, and if there is a pipeline problem that needs to be replaced, let's say in Greenhaven or New Rochelle, where does that, whose budget, if you will, assuming that we're keeping not commingled, even though things are commingled, that they're accounted for separately. Where do they get taken? Where are they accounted for?
Well, again, what happens in those instances, the revenue is allocated amongst the member municipalities, again, based on water sold in each of those member municipalities.
I think what Dan is asking is that if a pipe breaks in New Rochelle,
Right.
we don't fix that pipe. We're just selling them water.
Well, if we're talking about repairs, the repairs are part of our expenses and they're allocated back to the member municipalities based on their usage. If it's a capital project, and that's the same for the Waterworks overall. If it's a capital project, it becomes a joint capital project because all the members share in the revenues from those.
No, you're not understanding. What I'm trying to say is, let's just say we're selling to 500 houses in New Rochelle, right?
Yeah, 350. Yeah.
And a pipe breaks in New Rochelle.
Yes.
It's their distribution system. We don't fix the pipe.
In our outside district, which is that there's actually 70 homes served in New Rochelle, we do own that infrastructure. It's not New Rochelle's infrastructure. But just in that small area. For the rest of the city of New Rochelle, that's their distribution system. That's correct.
Okay.
So I'm still a little confused. Using Tom's example where the pipe breaks in New Rochelle.
Yes.
You're allocating the revenue that they're being charged is from the town of Mamaroneck's revenue, whatever rate that they have set, correct?
Well, correct.
Okay, now just follow me simplistically, okay? So simplistically, Mamaroneck sets the rate, New Rochelle pays that rate. Pipe breaks in New Rochelle. But you're saying that the fixing of the pipe comes from all three municipalities.
Yes, because in the case of repairs, again, we're talking about repairs, not capital projects, do major
Well, let's call it a capital project for the sake of discussion.
Okay, but it is.
I have to replace 200 feet of transit line
Yes.
in New Rochelle.
Mhm.
Okay, how is that handled?
What happens is it becomes a joint capital project of the member municipalities. They fund the capital project, and then the costs related to the debt service are recovered through the revenues from those, and then they're redistributed to the members.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a few, but I'm still go back to the setting of the rate here.
That's what we're talking about, the setting of the rate.
No, I understand that, Tom. Thank you. What you've given us is the rate increases for the three municipalities. What is the actual? Are the rates that are being charged by the three municipalities relatively even or not with your suggested changes?
Well, again, the circumstances within the member municipalities vary to some degree, but they are similar. I'm going to say the town of Mamaroneck, overall, the rate's a little bit higher than the village. In the village of Harrison, it's a little bit lower.
Okay, the town of Mamaroneck is a little higher after the 6% or before the 6%?
No, I think it's a little bit higher after the increase as well. The relative increases in the 6.
Okay, so when you go into fixing of a transit line, which is part of what goes into the rate that we have to set, correct?
Yeah, the idea is that in the rate setting that we're doing, that we're providing. Now, let me preface that by saying the village of Mamaroneck historically has used its water fund balance to some degree to fund transite water main placements, I believe. So what we try to do with respect to the rate setting, or the proposals from our end anyway, is to provide a level of income that, one, covers the debt service costs related to the infrastructure capital projects, and then also potentially a distribution that provides you with some fund balance, which gives you that flexibility to potentially pay for a project out of fund balance as opposed to finance it. And I think your fund balance right now in the water fund is somewhere around $2.5 million.
Okay, so let me put it in more simplistic language. You're telling me, if I'm understanding it correctly, there are three components of the rate to the water fund rate, correct? Joint capital projects, local capital projects, and operating projects. Is that?
No, there's four. There's cost of the water too.
Right. Yeah. So effectively, yes, we have the cost of the water purchases, which are part of our expense base.
Okay, I put that into operating, but I understand.
Okay. But yeah, it's a component of operating costs. You're right. And then in addition to that, we have obviously other operating costs for doing repairs within the system, for maintaining our SCADA and other computer systems, for running our treatment plants and buying chemicals and all of that, as far as, and then, obviously staffing costs that are all in the operating costs. So the idea is the rate is going to cover those operating costs and then provide a level of income to be distributed to the members to cover any debt service related or other costs related to capital projects.
Okay, so let me focus on the capital projects for a second. When you all last appeared before us, which was a very informative meeting to talk about the infiltration plan, you also indicated that when there is a break in the transit line, that you repair the entire line to the next major joint. I'll use my language, not technical language, because I can't remember what the actual words were. But so that's where you get to multiple hundreds feet of line normally. Is that correct?
Right. In the case of the transite water mains, yeah, there is
okay. So the practice, as I understand it, is that you've put that all out in on the emergency contract. Yet it takes a few months to put that together because you need Department of Health approval and you need plans, etc. So my question is, why cannot, because this affects the operating costs, which affects how much money we have to raise, to cover them. Why can we not fix the major break and put out to bid the rest of the replacement of the line?
In the case of transite water main breaks, we typically, in almost all the cases anyway, have residents that are on temporary water. And, typically these mains are breaking more in the winter than they do at other times of the year, but they break at other times as well. That's one of our biggest concerns as far as moving the projects forward and getting things accomplished as quickly as we can on those, so that we don't have situations where people are on temporary water in the winter and lines are constantly freezing and they have water interruptions and there are other issues.
I understand that. I'm not suggesting that. The question is, why cannot the problem be the break be fixed and the balance of the replacement, which is prudent business practice, of the line to the next major joint be replaced under a put out for bid as opposed to the emergency contract?
Lori Lee wants to say something. Lori Lee Dickinson is the attorney for Westchester General Waterworks.
This is Lori Lee Dixon, General Counsel to the Waterworks. If I could just help to fill in some details. you cannot repair once a transite main has made damage. There's no temporary plugging of the hole to pause. Right away, the county requires and mandates a full run to a certain extent. So you cannot do a temporary repair on a transite once it has been infiltrated.
That's Laura, that's not what I was asking.
Okay.
I appreciate that. You have a pipe, it breaks. You can repair the pipe.
You cannot repair a transite.
What you're saying is that you can't do that.
Can I finish, please?
County wants, you know, because the county wants you to replace the whole line. That's what the county Department of Health wants. That's why we're doing it.
Can I finish, please? At the last meeting, we were told that it was not a requirement that it had to be done at one time.
No, you weren't.
Yes, we were.
No, you weren't.
It was classified as a desire and prudent business practice.
That's not true. It's just not true.
Tom, let me just finish, and you can be happy to. I'm happy to be corrected and enlightened. So the issue becomes the difference between the emergency contract and putting out to bid based on the figures that you provided to us, which aren't total apples to apples, but are pretty close, is about a third, which is, in terms of the numbers that are being bandied about, is fairly considerable. So the question is, why cannot the broken pipe be replaced and the balance of the area that is that's transit pipe to the next connection be put out to bid? That's my question.
Lori Lee, do you want to answer that?
Yes, because that is not an available repair under the Department of Health's approvals. You cannot repair a damaged transite pipe. You must replace a damaged transite pipe, period. That's what makes it an emergency and priority contract in accordance with the county.
But the transite pipe continues past the next joint.
Dan, let me try and explain this. You have a transite pipe. Let's just say a perfect example is Barrymore. It was a horseshoe, right? It connected out onto Taylor's Lane into a non-transit pipe. So they replaced the whole Barrymore because the whole Barrymore was transite. You have to replace the whole line up until the next non-transite. That is what we said. That's what we've been saying. And that's what the Department of Health wants you to do. They don't want visible asbestos going through the water supply.
I understand that they want it replaced. I got that loud and clear. I have no problems with that. That's not my question.
If they want it done right away. They don't want, this is what they want to do, Dan. You know,
okay, let me ask it a different way. Has anybody raised with the Department of Health the question of being able to put part of it out to bid and part of it and not out to bid?
This is a Department of Health mandate.
That's not what we were told that's not what we were told at the last meeting by Paul.
Right.
So I guess I'll ask Paul, have you, from your experience at the county health, has that question ever been raised, and is there an answer to it?
Well, your couple of things. Yes, Dan, you're correct in terms of your point that you're making by joint to joint. Whereas as Lori Lee points out, you can't repair a transite and you have to replace up to joint. And it's understood where you're coming from in terms of why can we phase, at the same time, we have a directive. We have to file directive by the Department of Health in terms of some sort of plan for the replacement of all transite pipe within the village of Mamaroneck. So to your point, you're calling emergency, non-emergency. Certainly during the winter time, you're dealing with, you have your temporary overland connection due to having to isolate a section of the transite to perform the repair. Now, what happens is, Dan, is you can't just isolate 20 feet of water main or 40 feet of water main. That's impossible because it has to do with where your next valve is in the system. And we're typically dealing with dead ends. So you wind up isolating an entire length of water main at that point, okay, which has to be put back into service. There's a function of during the winter time, there's a concern with regard to, particularly in the winter time, a concern with regard to it freezing. And so it needs to be done we want to have the temporary arrangement up for as short as period as possible. As far as the emergency goes, it's an emergency priorities contract, emergency priorities. Okay, it went out to bid, obviously, as you're aware, and it factors in a priority, which is the replacement of asbestos cement pipe, transite pipe. So, from a different perspective, yes, it is covered under a bidding process, the emergency priority contract itself. Does that help you, Dan, or do you want to?
Well, no, it helps somewhat and confuses somewhat because the rates on the emergency contract are substantially higher than that put out to bid, at least on the numbers that you provided to us, which were very helpful. So the question is, if you're talking about $1 million a year and a third of that, that's $300,000, which isn't anything to sneeze at.
Dan, I'm not quite sure. Maybe David could speak to that. I'm not clear at the point that you're making there, or if it's the case, in terms of the cost that you would see utilizing the emergency priorities contract as opposed to the cost that you would see if it was segregated, broken into components, and then put out to bid.
No, I wasn't talking about both components being put out to bid. Only the
Right. Well, you're separate. Well, the other component being put out to bid. And another footnote, as far as coordination with the health department, there's a fast track process in terms of getting approvals to replace the asbestos, place the transite pipe. When that's submitted to the health department, for instance, because it involves water quality and public safety, that gets immediately put on the top, and it is reviewed almost right after it arrives at the health department.
But that still would be the case for transite. Transite would be transite.
Yes, that the case of transite, yes, it's put right to the top of the pile at the health department, reviewed.
I understand that
because of the nature of it. So there isn't a, where I think you were suggesting in the beginning that this process, that there is an approval process, if you will, that takes some time, and on a parallel track, why aren't we separately putting it out to bid? It's really not. The process is very much facilitated by the health department, given the risks associated with the asbestos, with the transite pipe.
And what are the risks?
Public health risks?
Yeah.
Okay. With regard to, there's 3 categories of public health risk associated with water quality. One is you'll hear more frequently, a boil water. The other would be first is, well, there's 3, and I'm like losing my train of thought here. Just bear with me a moment.
But I want specifically, what are the risks with transite pipes?
Yeah, please let me think through this right now.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you have a boil water, you have a do not use, altogether. Well, I'll go to that one. There's three categories. The least severe, you have a boil water at one end, and then at the other end is a do not use, which is what asbestos, a transite water main break would cause, where there's potential for asbestos fibers to get in the water, because ingestion of asbestos fibers is, I'm sorry, there's a boil water, there's a do not drink, then there's do not use. Okay, so the more severe is the do not use, which is the transite pipe. Ingestion of asbestos fibers is not the hazard. It's breathing of the asbestos fibers, which is a hazard. So any utilizing of a faucet, a shower, anything could cause asbestos fibers to become airborne. So you can't use the water whatsoever in the case of, so that's the risk associated with transite main breaks.
Thank you. So to do not use risk.
Yes, do not use. But we don't get to that point because what winds up happening is that Westchester Joint is quick to respond to isolate the break and temp out the system in order to restore water service. The first thing that Westchester Joint does on a parallel track with temping out the area is shutting off all of those curb stops to the homes. So the risk is removed when the curb stops are closed. The homeowner doesn't have any choice then to do not use because their curb stops are shut. But shortly thereafter, the water is tempted out, and the water service is restored to the homes.
When you say, you talk about the valve in the street, you kill a valve in the street.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't have to go knocking, we don't have to put on, it's not a voluntary, it's not knocking on doors and saying, please do not use. It's, you don't have the ability to use because we're closing the curb stops at the street, the water valves.
Right.
And providing the temping out the water and getting that facilitated as quick as possible.
So when was the last time your emergency service contract was put out to bid?
David?
Yeah, it was originally bid in 2016. It had a 2-year extension. It is scheduled to be rebid. Well, the current one ends May 31st, so it'll be rebid over the next, within the next month or so.
Okay. Okay, I'm curious. You used to be on a quarterly billing, you were now on a monthly billing. And there are fees associated with each billing. Is there a reason you had to go to monthly billing?
Well, there are a few reasons for monthly billing, and in fact, over the years, the majority of residents and also council people that we have heard from were in favor of the monthly billing because of the fact most every other bill they receive is monthly, and there were a lot of complaints about bills being received quarterly and being forgotten about, etc. There was that issue, but really one of the biggest issue with respect to that is that we're able, through monthly meter reads and billing, identify when there's unusual levels of water use, leaks, etc., and identify those, or they become apparent to the homeowner, and then they can take corrective action before it becomes an expensive bill, effectively, because they've had appliances or bathroom fixtures and whatnot that have been leaking for a long period of time, and they frankly waste a lot of water.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's a significant savings both to the customer in the way of identifying leaks sooner and not having to pay exorbitant leak bills, and you know, to our operating costs as well, because it eliminates the that excess water or that water that's used as a result of leakage. And there is a high percentage of leakage within the customer accounts.
So is the administrative fee that you would add to each bill the same as it was in the quarterly?
The administrative fee. You mean the baseline charge that's not based on water usage?
No, you have a fee, you have fees involved for the, you have your actual water usage,
Correct.
and then you have fees in addition to that.
Well, we would have there's basically a basic water service or meter connection fee. And that's, in the case of the monthly billing, it's just 1/3 of what it was on a quarterly basis, if that's your question.
So it's just allocated over 12 payments instead of over 4.
Right. So it's
Okay, well, that answers the question too. A lot of people have raised that question.
Haven't heard that. Does anybody other than Dan Hatches on the board want to ask questions? Because we've been on this for 40 minutes now. Kelly? Nora?
The only question I have is that we seem to have a consistent amount of emergency repairs. So is there a way of having them repaired at a lower rate because there's going to be a guaranteed amount of them to the vendor, or is that not an option?
Well, can I speak to that? This is Paul. Fortunately, these breaks almost are happening at a manageable periodic rate. The worst case scenario with these pipes becoming aged is if all the asbestos transite pipe throughout the village decided to break all at once. It's just been working out nice in the way that the breaks are consistent with a schedule that's acceptable to the Board of Health. And in other words, we're having enough breaks that the Board of Health is not asking us to do any more replacement above and beyond what's associated with a break. Does that answer your question?
No. So maybe I'll try to phrase it a different way. Would it be less expensive if we said we are going to proactively replace a pipe on Barrymore or some other street because we expect it to break and budget for it ahead of time? So, and if that's the case, is there a way of saying, we're going to do $1 million worth of repairs every year. We're going to guarantee that amount of work to the contractor. So instead of doing it on an emergency basis, it's explained to me that they're doing it, that the emergency factor is they've got to respond quickly.
But
They know they're going to have X amount of work, and we know we're doing about $1 million worth of it a year. Is there a way of planning for that ahead of time as opposed to always doing it on an emergency basis?
Yes, I think there may be cost savings associated with that approach.
Okay. So maybe that's something we
I think we touched on this in the past, David, right?
Yeah. I think part of the discussion we had was, if we schedule Street A to be replaced in 2021, there's still a chance that Street B is going to break, and we're going to be doing 2 instead of 1.
I understand, but I guess my point is we have this emergency relationship, and it's a higher rate of billing. But if we guaranteed the contractor X amount of work, even if it were emergency work, it might be done at a lower rate because we're spending the money anyway. Maybe we can spend it and get more work done. That's all.
I think that's kind of what the contract is, though, Nora. We're saying to the contractor, we want you ready. Here's what happens, too. When there's a break, right, that guy is out there within a couple of hours working on that break and, giving temporary water to the people in that community. So that's kind of what the emergency contract is. But to do that, he has to have a certain level of staffing.
Well, my point is, if we're going to guarantee them X amount of work every year, we might get a lower emergency rate because they know they have X amount of work, even though they have to respond quickly. Because it seems to be we do a consistent amount of it every year.
I know, but what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying that that's a terrible idea. It's something we should look at, but what I'm trying to say is what a downfall to that might be is, all right, I get 8 months into it and I haven't had a transite break. So I said, all right, we have a transite pipe over on, Street A. He starts changing that pipe, and then Street B goes. And we got to rush everything over there to fix Street B, because now that's an emergency. So now I got 2 streets out.
I misunderstood your question a little bit, how I interpreted, and what I thought you were asking was if we had a proactive as opposed to a reactive, and maybe some cost savings associated with that. The overall cost to the town wouldn't go down because you'd still have to deal with the breaks, work involved with that. But if you wanted to do in addition to that, also have a proactive approach to replacing the transite pipe, it would add additional cost to the village in the short term, but then you'd be done and over with replacement sooner rather than later.
But you'd still have to have an emergency contract.
Yes, you still have to have, and the emergency contract, emergency priorities contract would be absolutely where we have a breaks associated with a replacement, or excuse me, a break driving a replacement. Where we don't have a break driving a replacement, then that may be subject to further discussion.
Mayor Hernani is on. He may have something regarding the type of question that Trustee Lucas is asking.
Hernani?
Sure. So when it comes to that statistic that you're talking about a consistent amount of repair being needed every year, that's exactly what it is. It's a statistic. A certain amount of dollars per year is going to break an emergency situation without planning. To Paul's point, if you had 2 simultaneous programs, one which was proactive and the other one is reactive, the reactive is always going to still be consistently your normal breakages every year. And eventually that emergency is going to start coming down because you're just not going to have enough transite in the village to have that many emergency breaks. But it will affect the sewer rates today. It's kind of like saying every year, if you're teaching a class, every year 62% of your class is going to pass. It's just a statistics. Every year, a certain amount of your infrastructure is just going to fail on an emergency basis. And when it comes to these contracts with these emergencies, what you're paying for, to what Tom said, you're paying for somebody to be ready, willing, and able to jump on the spot, Johnny on the spot in 2 minutes. They fix it, and then you tell them, okay, sit on your butt for 2 months while we wait for the next break. And contractors can't obviously operate like that. So there's a premium to having that readiness and on and off work. But what you were saying, Mrs. Lucas, you're absolutely right. There would be a cost savings if we were to plan it out, but not with emergencies.
But there could be a hybrid built into the contract, which I think Nora may be implying. If not, I think it's a great idea. You have the emergency; they have to be there in 2 hours, to stop the, to stop the water from flowing.
Yeah.
But if they know that they will be guaranteed $1 million a year in work, whether it is emergency or non-emergency.
It's not necessarily the dollar amount, though. It's the readiness. When you're talking about quantities for a guaranteed amount of work, for the proactive side, that does help. Yes, because it's planned. They know how many months they'll be working. They know how many days they'll be working. They can figure out how many crews they'll need at any given time. That's a planned event. And they can probably be better. Look, this is my experience because I used to work with Waterworks in Greenberg, and we had a lot of emergency works with water and sewer. And that's how our contracts always worked. We always had 2 separate contracts, one for the proactive and one for the emergency.
I understand, but I'm suggesting it might be worth investigating and possibly seeing what happens in the new bid that's going to go out, or what happens if you do a hybrid.
Let me just point out something else. If we do a hybrid, and if the Westchester Joint Waterworks decides to do that, and let's just say we do it for the Village of Mamaroneck, and we guarantee somebody $1 million worth of work, and then we also have to have an emergency service contract. What you're going to be doing is that's going to be, at the end of the day, you're going to be getting the work done quicker, and that's a plus. That's on the plus side, right? But on the minus side is then you have to pay for that $1 million of work that you guaranteed that guy, and that's it's going to raise your water rates, and if that's and
You can't raise the water bills if you have $1 million worth of work that you're going to do regardless.
Dan,
Yes.
I let you talk for a long time tonight. All right, so when I'm talking, let me finish talking. You could have a situation where you have a guy doing a planned, the $1 million that you told him you were going to do it, and he's doing it, and then you have another break, and then you're back in the same thing. And and that might be a good idea to get the work done and to get this over with, but there is a cost associated with that. And if you want to bear the cost, then they should rejigger, what our increase is going to be, because that's another $1 million a year. Because you still have to, have these emergency service contracts. Because there are other emergencies too, not just transite pipe.
And also, it's not just the dollar amount, it's the type of work. You could spend a lot of $1 million doing rock chipping because you have to do a trench in rock, and you only get, half of what you would have gotten for $1 million if there was no rock.
Correct.
Do we have any statistics on how many non-emergency transite repairs have been done in the last 10 years? Or is it mostly just when they break?
Yeah, they've been done on the basis of when they break.
Okay.
What about, David, I'll ask you, what about where there's going to be the village scheduled to repave a road which has transite pipe?
I'd have to say that I don't think we've necessarily had that situation at this point.
I don't recall it, but that would be a circumstance where if we were aware of the village repaving a road which has transite pipe, then that would be the opportune time to replace that water main under a non-emergency scenario.
So, and I guess we have a list of where all the transite pipes are. I mean, there's maps documenting which pipes are transite and which pipes have been replaced.
And also one of the cost savings with regard to doing it proactively, then you may not have to incur the expense of temping out a street. Because you can lay the new pipe, leave the existing transite active, and then transfer the service connection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions about the water rate increase today?
I just have one. Is there a difference between the authorization and the appropriation in the minds of the Waterworks?
In terms of the authorization by the Westchester Joint Waterworks Board versus
No, by the municipalities.
Well, whenever we have a capital project and we review.
David, I just want to say that this is currently the subject of litigation. So we can talk in generic procedural, this is how it's done, but in terms of, reaching a legal conclusion, Mr. Natchez, I'd be reluctant to weigh in with a significant amount of that substance that you're looking for.
Did not realize that that's the subject of litigation, but a generic answer would be fine.
Lori Lee, you're okay with that?
I think what I'm saying is I believe Mr. Natchez is aware of the difference between an appropriation and an authorization. And I think that what he's looking what he's looking for is well beyond the scope of a definitional difference. He's looking at an answer which is really the subject of current litigation. And I think that whatever you could tell him, Mr. Birdsall, would be exactly what he already knows. So it might
No,
be.
let me put it in a different context, okay? Oriental Beach Club has had a transit pipe. It has not been either authorized or funded by the Village of Mamaroneck. It's treated as a local project, yet most of it has been done. That's what is of concern is, and this has to do with how the water rates, what goes into the components of the water rates.
I'm going to tell you how it works. The Board of Trustees has two functions as regard to the Waterworks. It sets the water rate, and if the water rate is insufficient, it then uses taxpayers' money to pay for the water bills. And it decides whether a project is a local project or not. That is the function of the Board of Trustees as in this instance.
But Tom, the Village Board of Trustees, not
What
the
Dan's trying
Waterworks
to get
Board.
to is absolutely something that is in litigation. And we all know that, and let's stop playing a game.
Forgive me, Tom, but I'm not playing a game. My concern is we get bills for work that's already been completed as a local project.
Yes, as an
That
emergency.
have not been authorized by the village.
And that work that's ongoing at Orienta is subject to the emergency and priority services contract. So we pass the bills through as a matter of course as a result of the emergency and the emergent issues related to the transite pipe.
But as I understand that was Laura Lee, I assume, correct?
This is Lori Lee, yes.
Yes, I say, forgive me. But as I understand it, that is a redundant pipe that between the two connections, there's no additional service on it other than Oriental Beach Club, and they had direct water.
No, I think this also involved the fire watch. We had to put, correct me if I'm wrong. Unfortunately, we don't have Terry on this call or Frank, but I believe Oriental Beach Club was having, somebody had, I believe, put on a fire watch.
That's correct.
What do you mean by fire watch? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
It means that they don't have the ability to fight a fire because they don't have adequate water service, so they have to hire somebody full-time to be at the building 24 hours a day to make sure it doesn't go on fire. That's what a fire watch is. I know that because I've done it. And this doesn't have to do with the 6% on the water rate. It doesn't. We're now far afield. Does anybody have any other questions about the 6% on the water?
I have questions, and as you know, I forward some already, and a lot of topics have been covered. So I'll try to fill in some of the blanks. But before I move there, I do think there's a relevant piece on the question that was just asked, because we have in new business for today, the project that has just been mentioned. So means that the work has already been completed, or when we approve it, it gets done. Do I hear that it's already been done? Is that what I heard?
Work has been done on an emergency basis, yes.
Okay, so then we can only pay things when we have appropriated. So means that we need to appropriate for this first, meaning today, before we pay any bills on this. Would that be, and that's actually that's not a question for Lori Lee. No, not to worry, Lori Lee. I think it's our own turf. But I do think then kind of that's how essentially you've approved it over there. It comes to us in the meantime, you do some very, very emergency. This seems like an emergency. but we have not appropriated for it. So there's something there that's kind of up in the limbo, in the ether. I would like to follow up with that later with our counsel, or with you, Laurie, or with Joint Waterworks staff, but I think it's relevant. But then let me jump up to my questions. And can you go, David, to your first slide, please?
I'm sorry.
Your first slide.
Oh,
So you only have 4, I think, or 5. Yes, okay. So the primary driver, no, the second one then. There we go.
Yeah.
Second bullet. Primary driver is the increase in debt service cost associated with water infrastructure capital projects. As I understand, this relates to the presentation you gave us January 27th.
yes.
That's the 5-year capital plan. Okay. So what I'm trying to get is to the number that is there, because I see in the next, go to the next one. The next one tells us that the number is 126 million for 5 years, and the Village of Mamaroneck has to take care of 35 of that. Then my question is, how much do we have to put in our capital plan for 2020? That was actually my question, which I've resolved already partially, but hopefully you'll help me fill the other pieces. In your presentation from the 27th, do you have it available? If not, I can share it.
I don't have it right here.
You cannot share while others are sharing. So either I can be authorized, or I can just go through I can refer to it if it's okay. In page, there's a very, very good slide. It's actually the second one.
Right.
Where you present the 5-year capital plan and you break it out in 5 years.
Correct.
The first year is 19,150,000.
Yep.
Okay. And then I saw an email from I just got an email from you today that had not been referred to us, and that's why my question is coming late, because what I'm trying to pin down is how much of that how much of that primary driver for this year is that we have to keep in mind in our heads. So that 5.1 is you have identified that, and I got an email today. The problem was it had not been shared, and I'm no one. It's not blaming anybody. I think it's just the way it was transmitted. When your request for increase was transmitted, your email attachment didn't get to us, and we've all been very busy. But in that email, which I got today, actually I can refer to it, is an email from you, David, to Augie, Gary, CC, Tom, Paul, where it says, it describes how much is this 5.1, but in the 5.1 description, you only single out 3 of the projects. The Ray-like UV facility, which is 8, and we have to pay 2.2, but it comes down to 3.1. Is that correct? I'm sorry, to 1.3 because of the grant we got from EFC.
Well, on the $8 million project, there's a $3 million grant.
Okay. So how much I need to get to a number that's going to go to our capital budget in 2020, and it's part of how much we're going to, the amount I'm going to keep in my head for this rate increase. So I need to get to 5.1. So the first one is the Rye Lake filtration. We have approved that project. It was done earlier this year. So I'm counting 1.3. Then the next one will be the filtration plant. You indicate here is that's a big one, but for this year it's only 6 million, and of that the Village of Mamaroneck is 1.6.
Right.
And then the third one would be Wingfoot. That's 0.8 out of 3. So that only gets me like 2.7. You see, then my question is, how do we get from 2.7 to 5.1? What am I missing?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just ask you about the 5.1.
actually, if we can't do it today, or you can fill me in, you can give me just broad answers. I don't expect you to answer everything now. I've been doing my homework, so I'm getting very, trying to be very specific.
Right, I understand. Sorry, what I was just trying to understand was the 5.1 million, because I'm not sure where that's coming from.
You said that that's how much we should be expecting to pay as capital plan for this year. Comes straight out of your email. It's expected that 5.1 in capital costs will be incurred in 2020 by the village of Mamaroneck.
Mm-hmm. And when was that dated? I'm sorry, because I don't.
It's an email from you, February 26, 2020, 9:37 a.m. to Augie and Jerry, CC Tom and Paul. That email was related to us when we put this on our session on the 29th, or whenever we met, or whenever we would discuss this. I think it was for the last meeting. But the email actually was not attached, so I just got my hands on it.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look at that, because I'm
The important thing is then follow. Give us the other pieces. It may be some of what's here in the capital plan. It may be shaft 22. It may be the pressure bulbs 1 and 2 interconnections. It may be that. But I want to put it on the capital budget for this year. That's my.
Okay. No, actually, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. I missed that. The 5.1 is approximately 27.5% of the 19,150. So it's really components of all those pieces.
Okay, that answers it actually, because then we just have to incorporate all that into our capital fund. And actually that answers another question which I had at the very end of my questions, which is, have other municipalities already appropriated or approved this plan? And at least I know the town of Mamaroneck has, and they put it in their 2020 budget. They also include if I move to the next bullet, in the next bullet you talk about the 250,000. No, go back again. It's the second bullet in the same page. Here, that's my follow-up question here.
Yeah.
Now I have this first piece clear, which is 5.1, and then we'll just put the details. So that's question number 1 done. Question number 2 is this piece. You've touched on it. 250,000 is the average when you just open the streets and you just want to do repair. That also goes to our capital plan. And then the million, last year we only appropriated or had a figure of 800. Why do we go from 800 to $1 million?
Well, we took the 5-year average, which is approximately $1 million a year.
But then why was it last year 800? Because the average was less?
Well, no. The last, you would have had actuals for last year, actual transite main breaks and what was repaired. So that, that would be different than the average for the 5-year period we're looking at.
Okay, no, okay. So you've answered my question, and then I'll continue with Augie, because that's a question then for Augie, because last year we had just 800, not $1 million. Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's move to the actual rate. If you move to the other slides, the one where you have the averages.
Yeah.
There we go. My question is, now I've been on the board for 3 years, and my recollection is the first year we increased it. The first year, for not everybody knows, it was, what was that? 2018, 2017. You would come, I typically see you come in the fall. So that's what I was a little surprised and happy, glad to see you with the capital plan early in the year, but also I didn't understand why we were doing the rates, but that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
When and how, what has been our increases. So if I remember correctly, it was 3%, and with no objection, our board approved it. The second year, I think the 2008,
It was 2%.
yes, you proposed 4, and I think after some review, and you had some exchange with another trustee, and I think by then we already had trustee. I'm sorry, Mayor Murphy. The first one was before Murphy. The second one was with Mayor Murphy, and you proposed 4. We gave you 2. My then question is, what happened last year? I haven't found anything. I don't recall. Did we approve anything?
There was no rate increase last year, no.
There was no rate increase. Okay.
Right.
So that way, okay, that answers then my third question, which is why would it make sense to do it now? It is to kind of catch up with that rhythm that we had. But anything we do now will actually be for our 2021 budget, but for your 21 budget, correct?
What will happen is the income from our 2020, which is a calendar financial year, that income will be distributed to the Village of Mamaroneck in 2021. So what we're trying to do with respect to the rate setting, typically in the past, the rates have been set in conjunction with the rate setting of New York City, which is done at July 1st. Yeah, I know in 2018, I think the rate increase was somewhat later for some of the reasons you alluded to. What we're looking at now is, and why we said the primary driver of the rates is going to be the capital projects, is we want to make sure that we stay in step with what that debt service cost is going to be as we roll forward with the various projects, particularly obviously the filtration plant project, which is the largest of those. We want to make sure that the rates are set so that we're providing that bottom line income to be distributed to our members that is going to cover their debt service costs, so that you don't get into a situation where, well, you know, there is the option of the members using some of their accumulated water fund balance to stretch out the rate increases over maybe an additional year to bring the level down a bit.
Right.
But eventually we have to achieve a certain level of rate increase over the next 5 years to be able to meet the debt service costs associated with the major compliance project. So that's why we're looking at 6%. We're looking at setting it a bit earlier than we typically have to make sure that we're addressing that accumulating debt service that comes with the compliance projects moving forward.
And just
Following from there, if you go back 2 slides,
Yeah.
there you go.
Mhm.
So you're trying to get to 6, and 3.5 more or less reflects the New York City water rate.
That's correct.
1% operating cost, so that's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And you're factoring like 1.15 for increasing that capital fund, water fund. That's the analysis.
Well, effectively, we're looking at what we anticipate the timing of those capital projects to be, and then the funding requirement associated with that. But you know, again, we want to make sure that we're providing for what's happening with respect to those expenditures and the debt service associated with them, that we're providing early enough in the process so that we keep in line with what's happening there. Now, as I say, you do have some water fund balance, which you can choose to utilize in that process, but we know, you know, aside from the normal things that happen, we know that, you know, there are the transite main breaks and various other things that happen.
Thank you. So now moving then on the distributions, You already know the distributions that we will get this year and next year, this year at least.
Well, as far as based on our 2020 results,
Right?
An estimate.
let me just find that.
Yeah.
It's all based on
Yeah.
how wet or how dry or when for summer we have.
Just, just get it to us. Get it to us. I think that was kind of my question. I want to speed things a little bit. So it would be great if you can give that to us. That was Mayor Murphy asked for a kind of a description of how the Waterworks works, and
Yeah.
there's 3 very good attachments which explain the kind of the operations for the previous year. But that when he sent it to us was last year, so it has results of it's in the backup of 18 and 17. So if you could update those 3, I'm sorry, I think it's 4 exhibits for us or attachments. That would be great, because it does tell us, you know, the kind of the very basics of the operations of the Waterworks. So that's just some of that has been covered today, but it was really helpful for me. And in the last one of those was the distributions for 2019. So we don't have the distributions for 2020.
Yeah.
That'll help us.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what the proposed distribution is for the balance of this year.
Okay.
For this year, it's $847,000 is the proposed distribution.
But that could change based upon usage.
Well, that could change depending on, that would be one of the factors, sure.
That's quarterly, right? That's quarterly.
But no, the 847,000 is for the year, for our year. It's about $212,000 per month.
Nothing has come into our budget. Not yet. Nothing yet. It
No,
comes.
no, no. That goes right to the water fund.
Yes, I know, but when does it come in?
The first installment is proposed for the end of April.
Okay, and then it continues. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, last, and I thank you for your patience. I had. Let me see. But my questions are going to run quickly. I won't run through them. I think my only missing thing, and I'll wrap it up in one generic one, is that the original legislation calls for the Waterworks to send us information by February of the following year. And I think from what I read in that section, it's in my memo, most of it is what's in that description in those 4 pages. Am I missing something, or is there a more formal thing that you are supposed to send us? I want to just make sure that I'm looking at everything I'm statutorily required to do.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the 4 pages you're referencing, sorry.
Those are the 4 attachments of how the Waterworks works, which are, because it's a 3-page description, and then you have the general fund statement of operations, then you have the year end, then you have schedule of purchase orders, and finally you have the distribution. And you have the founding legislation requires kind of us, this board, to look at your statements by February, and then that goes into, and that gives us the authority to have our rate making. That's where our rate making authority comes from. So that's why I wanted to.
Okay, but you're looking for the audited financial statement, which has been recently completed.
What the law calls for is, and that's my question 3. It says statement of quantities so delivered in the calendar year preceding.
Right.
And then a report of affairs of such Waterworks. Statement of the amounts required to be paid by the village on account of the next year's ensuing operation. And that's why I found it relevant. And then the amounts would be credited or debited with its proportionate. So I don't want to get too in the nitty-gritty of that old legislation, but just want to make sure that everything, we're not missing any of that. And of course, I think most of that is covered by that very simple explanation. If I'm missing anything, please just forward it to us.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, I'm gonna pair with another item. The sewer rate discussion, I'm gonna pair that with the update for sewer remediation projects. And I'm gonna ask Hernani to give us a breakdown here.
Mayor, do you want to excuse the joint waterworks and we'll
Yeah,
take.
you guys are done. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul, David,
Oh,
Thank you.
Lily. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Keep talking. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Hernani, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Hope everybody else is doing well. Happy, healthy, hopefully. Thank you for having me tonight. I was asked to come in and discuss the status of our sanitary sewer project, the rehabilitation project, and get everybody up to speed as to where we are today and where we need to be from here to the end of the project. So if I could, I'll share my screen. And I have here, hope everybody can see it. It's a map of the community with all the metered areas. Can everybody see that? I want to make sure it's sharing correctly.
I can see it.
Okay. So this all started, as you know, with an order of consent because we had some sanitary sewer overflows, mainly in the West Basin. And the DEC and the village entered into an order on consent to investigate and rehabilitate our sanitary sewers. The way this was done is they worked their way from the worst generating I&I, that's influent infiltration, which is clean water getting into the sewer system and causing these overflows, to investigate those areas and rehabilitate in order. So when it comes to, this is like a general map. This map is very tall. It's 24 by 36. So it looks like a landscape right now on your screen. But I'll zoom in a second. This is to show all the metered areas that we have in the village under that order and consent. The metered areas that we focused on at first were metered areas 8, 13, 11, and 14. And we, over the past few years, have investigated and completed these areas. These are the worst offenders of I&I, according to the water metering study, the sewer metering study. What was left out of the sewer metering study was the West Basin, or mostly the Orienta area. They did a study based on the county study and evaluated what was already repaired in that area. And here you have on the map what was shown by Arcadis years ago, what was already repaired up to that point, and what was done in the years 2004 through 2011. And what they recommended in this area was just to go back and do what they call lateral grouting, which is fix the connection points where the house connection connects to the sewer main, thinking that it was that connection that was allowing clean water, groundwater, to come into the system. In addition to that, they went out and looked for some pumps that were connected to the sanitary sewer and roof leaders that were connected to the sanitary sewer, and they were able to use the building department's enforcement branch to have those disconnected. So what Arcadis ended up doing was just investigating one main pipe, the one that exhibited the overflows during the storm that started all of this. And that was the one going all the way up Rushmore Avenue. If you notice from the previous slide, the Rushmore Avenue main was already lined. It was a cast iron line that was lined in 2004. And then, of course, they came up with the recommendations that I just spoke about. What we did in 2017, the end of 2017, I believe, early 2018, we did the lateral grouting project, where we went to, we put a camera in the pipe, we looked for house connections that we can grout, and we tried to fix those connections. While we were doing those investigations, which I served as boots on the ground and coordinating that, I believe I did a presentation on that when that was happening. I noticed there were a lot of breaks in the pipe, infiltration stains, nothing that, we'd have to dig up immediately. There were some that led to some concern, but nothing that was complete blockages or complete collapses. But there were areas that would concern me. So I started to log all the defects. And these are done through the reports that the Lateral Grouting company did. They provided paper reports and video reports of everything that they saw. So we're putting that into a spreadsheet, all that information into a spreadsheet, and assessing what the appropriate repairs would be for a particular pipe. And that's what we're doing right now. In the meantime, we had Arcadis contracted to handle I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback on my microphone. We handled Arcadis to come up with a construction contract for metered areas 8, 11, 14, and 13, as you see here on your map. And while they were working on that, we tried to assess the West Basin. Arcadis completed their specifications and contract documents, at least the drawings and specs for these 4 areas. And what we're going to do is we're going to add on our quantities from the West Basin that we find from our I&I or lateral grouting project, and come out with a larger bid to do 8, 11, 13, 14, and West Basin. Early on, there were some estimates for the rehabilitation project. And what you see here in yellow is what Arcadis estimated at first, which was about $2 million for 8 and 13, and another 2.2 million, 2.3 million for metered areas 11 and 14. When they went back after the inspections and they took a look at what the unit prices would cost for the rehabilitation, these numbers had to be revised. And that brings us up to the number you see down here, the revised estimates. So it went from about 4.3 million in the original estimate to about 6.6 million. That's including engineering oversight. This has to do with lining a pipe, of course, cleaning it, lining it, point repairs, manhole repairs, some places point replacement, and other sections complete replacement from manhole to manhole, depending on the severity of the break or severity of the damage. Also in this was the rehabilitation and oversight of the West Basin area. This was a really round number. Remember, this was not based on any inspections because they didn't do any inspections, but it was kind of like a guess at about $2.7 million altogether with rehabilitation and oversight. That number is going to be revised to about $4 to $5 million. And the reason for that, as we're doing this quantification of the repairs required in the West Basin, we're coming up with about $2 million in lining, probably about another $1 million in manhole rehab, another $1 million in miscellaneous, such as point repairs, manhole to manhole replacements, and removing some blockages that we have there. We saw some cement being dumped had been dumped in one manhole, so that has to physically go in there and chip that out. That's going to cost some money, but that's only in one location. In any case, how this relates to our order on consent. Here we have a little table that shows you what we were supposed to do and when we're trying to get it done or have done it. We did the village-wide metering at first, as like I said in the beginning of this presentation, which told us which areas we had to investigate. Of course, the West Basin investigation was completed by Arcadis and provided to the DEC, and they were happy with the results, and that recommended the lateral grouting. Then we moved on to the investigation of 8 and 13, and then investigation of 11 and 14, which were both complete in 17 and 18 consecutively. When we finished that, we started the lateral grouting program in 8 and 13. I moved that lateral grouting program in addition to the West Basin into 8 and 13 because when we did the West Basin, we had plenty of money left in the budget because we couldn't find enough laterals to fix that were leaking. So we moved into 8 and 13 and we're proactive and try to fix laterals there, at least the connections. So that project was done in 2018. And that's where we found out all the defects in the West Basin by video cameraing it. What's remaining to be done is metered areas 7, 9, and 10. Now, if you remember, I said the initial investigation was the village-wide metering, and they ordered their investigate the subsequent televising investigation from order of worst to best. The worst areas were, of course, 8, 13, 11, and 14. So the remaining areas of the I&I that was found is 7, 9, and 10. Arcadis did provide the village did provide the village with a quote to finish off that investigation. I think that was provided to the board. I highly recommend we move forward with that as soon as possible. The reason being is we're going to be getting ready to put this out to bid for the repair for the 4 metered areas that were, sorry, 5 if you include the West Basin, metered areas that were investigated. And it would be nice that while these repairs are going on, we can complete that investigation and tag on a change order to repair the sections that are found in 7, 9, and 10. And then this way we could just roll from one contract into another without any stopping and keeping the ball rolling. We were looking to finish the preparation of the contract for these metered areas for repairs in February of this year. There were some complications. We had Mary give me a hand, Mary Schiffer, as you guys all know who she is, give me a hand with this. And of course I lost her because of the COVID and the restrictions, the staffing restrictions. So I'm left to complete the project on my own. I'm hoping to finish this project before the end of this month and have it ready for bidding. As far as the remaining work beyond that, we also have to do the rehabilitation, as I said, of 7, 9, and 10, and complete a CMOM program. CMOM program is pretty simple. It's something an in-house engineer can handle without a problem. And that can be done in-house to have some savings for the village. As far as budget goes, we should be prepared that this project is going to cost upwards of about $15 million, or up to $15 million, I should say. So if you look at here at the total cost estimate for the project early on, we were estimating at about a little over $10 million. And of course, these numbers were revised from 5 to 6.5, and this West Basin number is probably going to go up to about 4 to 5 million. It should be said that we have a grant that was afforded to us for these metered areas 8, 13, 11, and 14 in the amount of about little under $1.1 million.
Right.
And in the West Basin area, we were also given about $250,000 in a grant and low interest financing through the EFC to complete that work. While we asked for extensions from the DEC on this, that's what we were able to do with the extra time that we bought in extensions. We were able to get money for the project. So those revisions are probably going to bring this $10 million number up to about 15 million. Again, keep that in mind that we're assuming the remaining areas of 7, 9, and 10 are going to cost about 3 million, and we haven't even investigated that area. We're just going based on the lineal feet of sewer in that area and roughly what we expect to be in poor condition. As far as oversight, you'll notice on this table you have oversight and an amount set for it. This oversight, this is a very large project, and chances are during construction, there's going to be multiple crews out there. This is going to be far too much for anybody here in the village to provide oversight for. I would recommend that we go out to an outside engineering company and hire them to do oversight. We send out an RFP. And they'll have an appropriate amount of staff to watch the project, verify the quantities, perform quality control, look at the testing, and monitor the results, and provide us with a report at the end of what was done. Plus, you'll have field notes and everything else, and these things help protect us in case of future litigation too. Field notes and engineer observations. As far as the start of this project, the rehabilitation, like I said, I'm looking to get this done out to bid by the end of this month, God willing, with all the weather conditions and the staffing we have. And as far as the completion of the construction, it should be done sometime in 2021. And you have here 2021 as my schedule showed for the completion of the rehabilitation of 8, 11, 13, and 14 and West Basin. And then 2022, perhaps for the last sections. And we will only know that once that's investigated. The consent order. Now, I've been in contact with the DEC. I do speak to them from time to time. They are aware of our situation. I've asked them for an extension of our order of consent deadlines. They granted that extension via email. They did tell us that the schedule that I gave them was enforceable. So we do have to try to keep to these deadlines. We could try to go back and ask for another extension if we need to, but we'll need to articulate why. Of course, we're talking about financials today, and in the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking about financials and how we have issues with raising money and paying for these capital projects. I don't know if they'll entertain that. We can certainly try. I'm open for any questions.
Yeah, this is a good segue to maybe bring Jerry in to talk about the sewer rate discussion.
All right, so Mayor, originally we were going to look to make sure.
Sorry, I really don't mean to cut you off, but there are a lot of questions on what Hernani said. So shouldn't we just stop there? Because otherwise it doesn't make really a lot of sense. So I hate to interrupt you, but there's a lot of questions on what Hernani said, and I would appreciate an opportunity to ask him, because otherwise we'll continue having a discussion that has.
Well, all right, we can do it, but we're going to go way over on this. So why don't you ask Hernani your questions?
Okay, Hernani, the first, where's your last slide was? Where's Hernani? We lost him?
No, I'm here. You want me to share my screen?
Yeah, the last slide. Can we all share screens? Can I share my screen also? Yep. Well, first of all, your PowerPoint is just some of your PowerPoint. It was submitted to us in the backup. So can you please submit that PowerPoint to all of us, and then we'll make it part of right? Because some of the things are here. But my question to start with is, you're talking now of work between 2020, 2021, 22. And you did say that DEC had extended this, the deadline. The deadline was set in December, was set January 31st, 2020.
I'm sorry, somebody's making noise on the microphone. I can't hear you. Can you say that again?
The consent order from the DEC, which is, to be clear, I'm talking about a document that was signed by former managers Richard Slingerland on 2014, has a deadline of January 31st, 2020. Right? I know because Mr. Manager Slingerland sent me some extensions when he had to extend some deadlines. We went to DEC, they changed the schedule, and they would send him back the revised page. So I have one extension here somewhere, but in my files, which I've kept very closely on this project, I still have 2020. And if I believe I heard you correctly, they extended this in an email they sent you. I ask you, can you provide that email? Because my understanding is that And a consent order is something that is not just enforceable, it's a very, very serious document. So I want to be very clear if we do have that extension and how we have it, because an email is not sufficient in my respect, and I really am very, very concerned, and I raise it before the manager and leave a record. And I'm very concerned that this is a document that can be enforceable any minute unless you have it on paper. So if you have that email, the manager should have it. I asked for it, and you actually you said you didn't forward it to me. So I'm very confused because I thought they had not given an extension formally. So I think this has to be clarified before we go too far, because all the work and all the reviews until this date had the work to be completed this time. The last time Arcadis came to our board was in February of 2018. You were already on the board, except Mr. Natchez. And actually in October of that year, 2018, that's when we hired Arcadis versus Warren and Curran. I abstained of that vote because I thought it was not that clear, and they were going to provide the specs to do the work in 90 days. And you all four, except Mr. Natchez was not there, voted for it. I abstained. And then here we are, 2020. And I know, we know this is very complicated and difficult, but it is very clear that we are running 2 years behind. And I think we have to be very careful with our legal cover on what we need from DEC. And I can tell you for a fact, those people at DEC are very tough with companies, NGOs, and governments for alike. You better be on safe ground with those people. So I'm urging you our manager to make sure that we get that extension in writing before we go too far. Actually, with this and conclude, there are reports that are due every year and every month. You cannot waive those requirements. So there were reports due middle of this year and a report due this year, and I haven't seen them. I've asked for them. If we don't have the report, I also put them I raised them as a very big flag and concern, and with that, I can pass it on to the manager.
Anybody else? Mr. Manager, please talk about the rate.
So originally, Mayor, we were going to ask for the sewer fee increase in order to fund additional staffing for Hernani and to make sure that we had the number of people that we needed to manage what Hernani just explained to be a potential $15 million project. And so what comes to light now is that Hernani is leaving us to go to the county, and that we will need additional funding for an outside consultant to manage this project as we move forward. But before I continue with that, Hernani, can you provide that email for Trustee Tafour?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so send it to him now if you can.
I'm doing
it.
it.
Has it in front of him. Okay.
To the whole board.
Yeah, send it to the whole board. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. And so we will secure in writing in whatever document they provide for the extension that Hernani has secured for us. But it looks like, and what we originally had asked to do was to increase the staffing in Hernani's office because we knew this project was coming forward and we needed oversight in this project. And it should have been, and it should be, something that comes out of the sewer fee. The increase in the sewer fee was outlined. Dan articulated it very well in a memo, which this board may have questions on. But that's what that money is for. That money is going to be for managing this project, which the state is asking us to complete, and which we have to complete, and which is a boatload of money. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of money. And so we need the staff and we need the people to do it, or we need the money for an outside consultant to do it. now that we're in a little bit of limbo with our engineer's office right now. And that's really all I have to say about it.
Okay, so are you recommending that it be passed so that we can take that money out of the budget?
Correct. And that's exactly right. I'm sorry I missed that point. But it's explained in the memo that it can be taken out of the budget. And originally we presented the budget, which I had asked staff to give us a budget that's below the cap. But we had to include that money because we knew that this giant project was at our doorstep and that we needed to start and get it going. And I'm really happy that Hernani is going to put it out to bid before he leaves at the beginning of May. This way we can get this moving.
If I could respond to some of Trustee Tafour's questions.
Yeah.
With respect to the reports, I'll work my way backwards. With respect to the reports, there's one annually and one semi-annually. There's 2 reports a year. You said there were reports monthly, and that's not the case. It's twice a year. And with respect to the modifications to the order of consent and the administration of this order of consent, if you recall, this all started in 2014, I believe. About a year, maybe even a year and a half before I was even hired here. And the administration of this order of consent was managed through the village manager's office. Even throughout the time that I was hired in the beginning, while the original village manager was here, Mr. Slingerland, it was managed administratively through his office, and all the legal aspects of this was handled through the manager's office at that time. After his departure with the village, there was a bit of a void for a while. And then, of course, you guys know the whole transition of managers since then. Every so often when the DEC calls to find out from the village what's going on, they end up calling me because they know me. The person who's assigned to this knows me from prior to my employment here. And they asked me to give them a hand with trying to get some movement on the project. From a technical aspect, I'm your huckleberry. From a legal aspect and administering and negotiating on behalf of the village, while we had that void, I did the best I could with the information that I had. And I negotiated with the DEC, and I think the DEC and us, at least as far as I'm concerned, we're all on the same page. We want to see this get repaired, and we want to see this get repaired in a timely fashion. We understand that life comes up and things come up, and you have to adjust, and budgets and looking for money, like looking for grants and looking for low interest financing. These things, when you find out later on throughout your investigation how big this project truly is, you're like, oh my goodness, we need money. Okay, maybe we could afford you some more time to go look for that money, which we did. So these things came up, and as long as there's progress, which we've been showing there's progress in applying for grants, in continuing the investigation, in continuing doing the lateral grouting, and continuing what we're doing now, which is getting this project out, we've shown progress. Now, to your point, the order of consent is enforceable, and if they so choose, they can come down on us like a hammer, like they would with any corporation. But I like to think that the DEC, the folks over there, are good people, and they understand at least our situation as a municipality, our responsibility to our taxpayers, and to get the best prices possible, and to try to get the grant funding that's out there available to us that's unique to municipalities. And they helped us with that. They helped us, give us time to sort that out as long as they saw progress. Perhaps it wasn't handled, the extension wasn't handled through normal administrative means that the manager would have done, but I got it done, and I got the extension for 2 years. And it was via email. I did the best I could.
Thank you, Vinay. I appreciate it. And, you know, I just want to take this time to wish you good luck in
Thank
your job, and thank you for your service to the village.
Thank you. I really enjoyed my time here and enjoying working with everybody here. And I really like that everybody in this municipality, politicians on both sides of the table and all the public, they're all looking to progress this village in the right direction. Everybody's got a great heart here.
Thank
I
you.
want to say the same. I want to thank you for all the work you've done on this water issue. And you have, I know, you have a big load on your plate and you've been trying to catch up with all the water issues in the plate. But I do want to say one, and I do agree with you on one thing, is that typically the DEC works with municipality trying to do the right thing. And that's going to be of great help. And the state has been working in an incredible way. And David Otis has been the champion of getting funds for municipalities. So we are kind of we had kind of the perfect lineup of stars. Now the problem is what we have in front of us. But I do want to refer your email that I just got. I think it would be inappropriate for me to discuss it here openly. I want to refer that to our attorney. And Jerry, I urge you to follow up on that email and to what that means.
Okay. On for tonight.
Sorry, say that again.
No, what Victor's saying is he wants the village attorney to review that email. So somebody send that to the village attorney
I'll send it right now.
and to have it, I guess, more legally enshrined.
We'll follow up in advice of counsel and he can start taking a look at it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to try and get any more questions on this. Everybody understands how the sewer rate works, right? That it comes off the amount of water you use. And I think part of what the DEC would look for and be happy with is that we have a dedicated source of funding to pay for the work. Okay. I'm going to do the stuff that's on for tonight because it's already almost 7 o'clock. But let me get the easy one. Southeast Consortium. Everybody knows what that is, right? Southeast Consortium. That is the group that provides recreational facilities for folks that need a hand, folks that are developmentally disabled or physically disabled. We go into an agreement with the other municipalities around here, and it costs us a lot less than if we had to do it ourselves. And they have a very good program, and I've heard nothing but good things out of folks who have loved ones who participate in it. So is everybody fine for having that on for the regular meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Joint Waterworks, accepting that project that we talked about as a village project. There was an easement which the Joint Waterworks has with that area that was included at one point. So everybody fine with having that on for the regular meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Update of sewer remediation. No, that's for village engineer to present. Okay. That's not on for the regular meeting. Renewal of village attorney's contract on for the regular meeting. It actually expires in 2 days. In advice of counsel, or do we just want to approve it? We'll talk about it out here. Or is it even an advice of counsel item?
I think needs to be discussed whether it's here or advice of counsel is up to how everybody.
Whether it's here to advice of counsel.
I'm not sure you can discuss it in advice of counsel since there's no advice coming from counsel.
Right.
It's executive session.
Unless you want to talk about my performance, it's not an executive session item. If you do, that's fine. That's an executive session item.
I'm looking at it for guidance from you folks.
I'm happy to do it here or executive session, however we wish to do it.
But we have Bob, The other item, is that advice of counsel?
Yes, there is an advice of counsel item tonight.
Yep, we have one advice of counsel item already. Okay, here's what we have. We have a contract that's up in 2 days, and we don't renew the contract, we don't have representation. What do you guys want to do? Or how do you want to do it?
Well, I'd like to have it as an executive session.
Anybody else?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Make a motion to go into advisory council and executive session.
Yeah, that don't do it. What more, Nora, why don't you make a motion?
I guess we could make a motion to go into advice of counsel to discuss the, I don't know if it's the employment of a particular firm, I guess is what it is.
I think that's executive session, not advice of counsel.
Executive session. Yes, thanks. Sorry.
It's 105.1 F.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Augie?
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
yes.
DeFour,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. All right, let's go into the next call.
Okay, so we have to call in for executive session, right?
Yes.
So do you want to step into another room and call in?
Why?
So it's private, it's the executive session, or you want me to mute the mics? It's more
Yeah, I'm going to mute everyone now for the executive session. This is Cliff, by the way.
another room and call.
I'm gonna let me know when you want to do advice of counsel,
Well, do we want to do that first?
whatever you want to do.
Well, we're muted now, I think.
Still gotta call in.
No, we're
I
not.
haven't muted yet.
Cliff, can you also turn off the video?
Yep, I'll do that.
I don't have a call-in number. I don't know if anybody else does.
You're calling?
freeconferencecall.com. Please enter
I'll
your
forward it
access
to you, Bob.
code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Me,
Hey, are we using the call-in number and the code that we got today, earlier today? Can we just?
Yes. I think so, yes.
Okay.
Right, I'm using that.
Hey, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, Dan, it's Kelly. I think they're still setting up. I'm gonna be back in a second. I'm just running to the restroom, okay?
I can't start, we can't use the video yet. Oh, and-
Here
Yes,
it
we can.
goes.
I was saying, I'll be back in a couple minutes.
okay.
My video is not turning on.
No, because the host has stopped it. We have to wait for the host to turn it back on. That's what mine says. I don't know if that's
Nora-
Augie or Cliff.
Nora, can you
Cliff.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep, I'm going through and requesting everyone to start.
Who's doing that?
I think
turn
Nora,
the
are
heat
you able
off.
to enable your video now?
Oh, hold on. I can't, it says I can't enable my video, Cliff.
All right, try it again now.
Nope. Says no.
There we go.
Oh, I think I did it. Good, great, thank you
You're welcome.
for everything, thank you.
Victor, it looks like your camera is missing. I'm not sure what happened there.
And it looks like he's muted too.
Yeah, I was muted, but the camera is definitely not coming up. I have not touched the computer, of course. Should I just leave and rejoin?
Yeah, give that a shot just to see if that fixes the video.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yep.
No, because the host has stopped it. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Okay. I'm going through and requesting everyone to start.
All right, everyone should be able to enable their video if they're sitting at their workstation.
I got it.
Yeah. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Nora. Dave had brought me, I don't know if you saw, Dave brought me a slice of pizza during that
Oh,
meeting.
nice. That was nice.
He made it. It was so
Oh.
salty that
Oh.
I'm like,
Sorry, I still get the same message. So you probably have to do without seeing me.
we saw you earlier, Victor.
Yeah.
Yep, was doing the same thing. Zoom is not perfect, now you know.
Victor, I could try connecting to you to troubleshoot real quick if you want.
Okay. Troubleshoot, but if
Thank God for Cliff.
they want to start the meeting, they should go. Can they do that? Can they start?
Yeah, they should be able to.
Okay.
Tom's not here yet, so.
Okay.
And Augie's not, right?
Yeah.
Augie's with Thompson.
Dan, I love your background.
Thank you. I was going to take, I came home early so I could participate here instead of, being at the
Oh, that makes sense.
11 o'clock. So I figured I should just take a picture of my office and use that as my background.
Mhm. I like Cliff's. It looks like he's at a cafe.
So Nora, how are you doing with the electronic documents at the same time?
Well, I have my desktop computer has 2 screens and I'm using my laptop for Zooming.
Yeah, I've got 2 laptops going here.
Mhm.
One with so I keep turning but my other laptop goes to sleep. And so I'm always typing in my password because it's going to sleep all the time.
It's not a perfect system.
It's not.
But I haven't put sticky notes on my screen yet.
I'm really not.
Ready to start the meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need a motion to close the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think Dan Natchez is muted. Is he?
Yes.
Okay. He's fixed.
Hi, Dan.
off. It keeps
Okay.
going off.
All right, just don't touch it and we got it.
I haven't touched it. It just goes off by itself.
That's real.
Can you hear me now?
I need a
I can
motion.
hear you.
I need a motion to open the regular Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees meeting for April 13, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Augie, pick anybody.
Aye.
Please join me in standing for Pledge of Allegiance. Aye.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it
for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty
and justice for all.
Next time we need a flag as the image.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Tom, just so you know, Victor, I think, is having trouble getting back on.
Is that the beeps we keep hearing?
Probably.
He's
I
working
did try
with,
to arrange
but I think,
for a flag, Nora, but I wanted to get a good picture of a flag at half staff.
All right,
Oh.
let's get started with the meeting. Let's get started with the meeting, all right?
okay, yeah.
Communication to the board. Hello, board.
Anybody
Hello.
here?
Anyone in the audience who, right?
There are 2 people in the audience.
Okay.
Okay.
Do either of them have their hands up?
Neither have hands up.
You have hands up, okay. Public hearings. Fiscal year 2020 to 2021 tentative budget. Continuation of a public hearing. I need a motion to open this public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Call roll, Augie.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winthrop,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
Tofor,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Jerry?
Mayor, since our last meeting, let me make sure. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Since our last meeting, we received a document from the county. During the municipal calls, the county leaders asked County Executive Latimer to have his staff prepare something in regards to projections for what would be a reduction in sales tax revenue that comes in. Obviously, the other revenue that we have, parking meters and tickets and things of that nature, we can do those projections because we know what we bring in. But the county has provided a document where it is a graduated, it's a big decrease in the beginning is what they're projecting of 20%. And it goes down to 10 and then 5 as the year progresses, with the assumption that the pandemic will be over sometime in the summer, early fall, and then things hopefully get back to normal this time next year. The county is projecting that we are back to normal. It's optimistic. I like being optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure, how correct they are. What they have offered, however, is for us as an organization to have a meeting with them, with their staff, one-on-one, a Zoom meeting, so that we can talk about some of the trends or some of the guesses. It's just hard to come up with a good word. Some of their guesses and what they have in regards to where we could be during this year. We start our budget hearings, with the individual departments tomorrow, and we'll be going through them. I have not tasked them with anything. They were tasked. So originally, when we started the budget process, Augie met with all of the department heads. He got their wish list. He got everything from them that they were looking for. That increase was somewhere around 11.5%, just about 11.5%. And so what I did, and much to the staff's credit, is that I tasked them to bring that down to a cap compliant budget. And they did save the sewer fee issue and the staffing of the engineer's office, which has been deficient for several years now. We have to now look at revenue instead of the expenses, focus on the revenue, and then take that revenue and start to formulate some kind of expenses. And so I'm hoping that the board has looked at the tentative budget and has come up with some questions, has come up with some areas where we would be potentially considering cuts. For instance, Augie did provide a list of new positions in the budget, totaling $412,000. And so if there's an absolute hiring freeze for the next year, we can remove $412,000 out of the budget. I'm not sure how practical that is. I'm not sure if that's even possible, especially with our essential employees and our public service or public safety employees. Obviously, we are leaning on them more than anyone right now. And we just can't believe how hard they're working. And we have police officers working 12-hour shifts right now because of the situation that we're in. Our firefighters, bless their soul, they don't get a dime, but they come out, and today they were all over the place. I took one of the pickup trucks that we rented and drove around and checked the levels at the river and checked at the rivers, and then checked all of the locations that were coming across the scanner that have issues. And they're all out there. They're all out there making sure that the public is safe. And that's, that's what they do. So that's where we are right now. I don't have much else to offer. I will during our individual budget conversations, but as of right now, that's it for me.
Jerry, the county didn't give you any projections on mortgage taxes?
On which taxes?
Mortgage tax.
No, they didn't, and they wouldn't. And if they did, I missed it, because I think that's where the other municipal leaders are asking for some more in-depth conversations and more in-depth questions. And so what the county executive offered today was that we have one-on-one meetings and set up schedules with all of the different municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. So tomorrow is our first sort of in-depth budget workshop. And I'm wondering if, and it's Harbor Master and Parks and Recreation. And today we realized that it was, the agenda says engineering, but we hadn't noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that next Wednesday, which is our last meeting, we're supposed to discuss revenues. And I'm wondering whether we should be doing revenues first, and we need to figure out where we're going to slip engineering in. And I think we should start with revenues tomorrow.
Okay, I mean, we've been working on revenues. We've been looking at some things. We can come up tomorrow with some projections that potentially would be to provide some clarity. I know Dan Sarnoff had a spreadsheet today on the distribution of the sales tax and how it's a little off with the way we receive sales tax compared to the way the county has presented the sales tax. But we can work on some of that and give you at least some idea of where we think we're going to be falling short.
Can I just ask some broad questions? What are we down, an estimate? What are we down per month on meters?
So the estimate that Augie and that Jonathan came up with was that it looks like with the potential loss of sales tax and the meters and the tickets that we could be hemorrhaging about $500,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have numbers on because I haven't looked at the meters where I think, what did Augie say earlier today? We have 600, we collected 660 out of the projected 800,000 in parking meter fees. So say that again, Augie?
620,000.
620 out of the 800 that we projected.
For this year, the year we're in.
Yeah.
So we're down for the year we're in.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're down collectively. We could be hemorrhaging up to in excess of $300,000 to $500,000 a year. I mean, a month.
The current fiscal year. It's a shame because we were doing so much better.
Yeah. So this year is this year. I mean, we'll try. We can't. But we have to do is our biggest question during the next 2 weeks is when do you think we can start to get back to the revenue that we anticipated earlier when we created the budget? I don't know. County has provided some. I don't know.
Yeah, you need a crystal ball.
That's right.
So based on what you've said and whatever, we're going to be down just for this year alone, somewhere based upon my interpretation of the numbers, somewhere between $1 million and $2 million, depending on what hits and when.
No, so the problem, we're going to lose money, and we're losing money. I just don't know when they cut us off on the sales tax.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understand. And that's the big issue, but and that's going to have to be funded by our savings account, which is, it should be. And that's what the savings account is for.
That's correct.
Which leads me to a perspective for the coming year, which is, I was the one who suggested, not filling positions other than essential positions. The essential positions would be if you need, for the DPW and for the police. And I understand that, but we have a lot of other positions that, were proposed. So that's one thing. But my concern is that we have to, if I understand the numbers correctly, and if we are a quarter in the red, just 3 months in the red, we're going to have to adjust the budget somewhere, to be, particularly if we want to stay under the cap, somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million, which is a big number to swallow. So the question is there a way of doing it other than just saying cut everybody's budget 10%, which is the problem with doing something like that, is we don't know what the implications of where that, how that manifests itself. And that's not the way to do it. It's better to have each department head understand that we have tightened our belts, and not that there's anything in the budget that isn't desirous and meaningful and would be helpful in the long term, but maybe this isn't the year we can do it.
And I think a lot of intangibles out there too. There's, what happens with day camp? You all know that I have a big concern about day camp. And how does that affect us? What happens? We're not going to, there's no boating season. this is, this is one of those things where you open up Pandora's box and it all comes flying out. And, it had to be done. I mean, obviously, it's the right decision to do what we're doing. But, man.
So, but the issue is, how do you create a budget? And how do you go about it? I mean, department heads are in a better position if we say we have to cut something like 10%, just theoretically.
That's not what I was saying then. I was just saying that there are other vast issues that are going to affect the budget also. I'm not.
I understand that.
Agreeing with what you said. I'm just saying something different. And it's going to be a hell of a few months.
I agree with you, and it may be, unfortunately, it may be even longer than that. Who the heck knows? But the biggest problem that I have is I would like the department heads to be able to come in and say, if we really need to tighten our belts, if we really need to cut, to the bone, what can we cut? And I think those are the types of things that we have to identify. I'm not interested in cutting the camp, but if we can't open the camp, then that's both a revenue and an expense item. Those are types of things department heads can identify for us rather than us just picking and choosing.
The department heads aren't going to identify whether there's going to be camp or not. That's going to really be up to the Westchester County Department of Health.
I understand that. I'm just simply saying, if that were to happen, we could have a revenue and an expense area already understood. That's what I'm trying to suggest. So in our discussions, I'm hoping, Jerry, that you can work with the department heads to come in so that they're prepared, other than saying, well, here's our budget and we stand behind it.
I mean, one of the differences with camp is that there's a ramp up of hiring lots of employees. So not having the camp, we don't get the revenues, but we don't have the expenses. But when we don't have the boat fees, we don't have really a lot of seasonal boat employees. So it's just, those are the kinds of fees that, while we still have a functioning department, they aren't taking in the fees. So I think with day camp, I mean, I would hate to see day camp not happen, but I think there are lots of camps that are closing, and I think
it's problematic.
It's hugely problematic.
Yes, and my point about day camp, and what I've been trying to get across to the county and to our sister municipalities, especially in the village of Mamaroneck, it is so many people depend upon our day camp.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do with the kids in the summer. They got to work.
Sure.
And
just the way they depend on school.
No, exactly. But I think that's why if there's going to be a decision that's a negative decision, I would rather see it happen sooner.
So people can plan.
Life choices.
As best they can.
The truth so the truth with day camp is that if anyone has ever seen day camp, there is no social distancing in day camp.
No.
There's none whatsoever. And so if we're at that point where the governor and others are still telling us to continue to social distance, there's no way that we can operate a camp logically. There's just no way. The reality is, once we make the decision, we make the decision. Camp is not, in my mind, not that big of a problem, because there really is only a positive cash benefit to camp. We only make a little bit of money. There's a lot of money. It passes from one hand to the other. That's really how I see camp. So I'm not too concerned about camp.
On a budgetary basis, yes, I agree. But I just want to bring it up because, as I said, it keeps me up at night.
And it should, because
the county make that decision for the whole county.
Right. Other counties are already starting to make that decision, by the way. So we're just not there yet.
Yep. Okay, I'm sorry I digressed into that.
We will. I've already had conversations with one department head that's coming in to see us tomorrow. I will have conversations with the other department heads. When they come back at us and they say, I'm sorry, but there's just no way I can cut anything. It's on me. I'll take care of it from there. But we will give them the opportunity. They are the department heads. They're required and they get paid to run their department. And if there's some way of deferring some kind of an expense that they can put off until next year, that'll absolutely be part of the conversation. In addition to that, there are negotiated contracts. We're in contract talks with one union, and we've already settled with another union. Those kinds of things come into play when you start running out of money. Let's put it that way. And those are the tough choices and tough decisions that we have to make.
Thank you. I don't.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else have any budget questions for Jerry? Okay. During this budget hearing.
Well, wait, can we just, the only thing I want to make sure that we properly notice our engineering discussion.
When is that, tomorrow night?
Well, we never noticed it. So we didn't ever, it slipped our list.
So let's push it off to another night. If it's not in tomorrow night, and if it's not meeting the notice requirements, we'll push it off into another night.
So we should just, can we do that
Tack it
tonight?
on.
Can we just?
When do you want to put it, Nora?
Yeah, what's the farthest out meeting?
Well, the next our final meeting is, on tomorrow we have Harbor Master and Parks and Rec. Wednesday we have Police and Fire. Then Monday we have Building Department and Court. Tuesday the 21st we have Public Works, Village Manager and Clerk Treasurer. And Wednesday the 22nd we have Budget Revenue and Expenses. But if we're going to try to do revenue earlier, maybe we can put it on for the 22nd.
Which list are you going by? Because I have HR. We missed HR in that as well. And I know we put out, Sally,
I'm going by the,
Sally, did we put out a new memo with the additional department heads? The additional departments added? Do you recall?
No, Jerry, we didn't. We didn't put out anything with HR that I recall.
okay, so we need to add that too then. Okay.
Let me see here.
All right.
I got to look this up.
Mine's February 3rd.
Okay, so what are we doing here? I lost the trail.
We're looking at the noticing requirements.
We want to make sure we notice discussion of HR and engineering.
Why don't you do HR on the 21st with the clerk treasurer? Village manager.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, makes sense. I also want to make sure we have at some point a review of our capital plan. It is important. The capital plan for 2020 needs to be looked at. For example, to incorporate the improvements of the joint waterworks, to remove some other things that are there, to make sure we have it, fine tuned. Because we have a lot of work, so we can just dive right into and that's all.
So is HR and engineering going to be on the 21st? Is that what it is?
No, I think Victor was suggesting that we add, well, we usually do Public Works and HR together, don't we?
We never had HR before.
I mean, I'm
Do
sorry, we usually do
Public Works
Public
and
Works and
Engineering.
Engineering together.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we do all five? Public Works, Engineering, Village Manager, Clerk Treasurer, and HR at the same?
That's a big night.
It's a big night.
Why don't we do Public Works and Engineering?
But
What is that?
well, that's the 20. We're scheduled to do Public Works, Village Manager, and Clerk Treasurer the same night.
Jesus.
Do you want to add a night?
Well, we kind of, we have the April 22nd is budget review, including revenues, expenses, if necessary. So that was kind of our extra night. So do we want to try to do that?
Put it on there. Let's put it on there.
So what do we put on there?
The
Engineering and HR?
Yeah, HR is just two people. How hard could that be?
He's right. It's not that
Wait.
difficult.
So engineering and HR on the 22nd.
Okay, I make a motion to amend the budget schedule to include engineering and human resources department on April 22nd.
Second.
when do we do capital plan review?
Oh,
We'll save that for the last night.
that is the last night.
Capital plan, what, we didn't do a capital plan? All right, first
We
let's
can't-
vote on what I. Augie, call a roll.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
DeFour,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Okay, now, we need a capital night.
You're gonna need another meeting.
Do we want to add a meeting for Thursday, the 23rd?
Yes, we have to.
After 6 o'clock, 6:15, I have work until 6.
Yeah, 6:15 works for me. I'd rather eat first, too. I'm starving. Okay, how about on April 23rd, I make a motion that we schedule a budget hearing to deal with capital budget and expenditures in the village of Mamaroneck for 6:15 PM.
Second.
And we can add something, maybe review any issues related to funds that we have not, kind of a catch-all, other sections that have not,
Miscellaneous items.
yeah, kind of a catch-all.
There you
Okay.
I made the motion, who made the second?
I
I
did the
seconded.
All right, call roll.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
DeFour,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is a public hearing on PLLD 2020, proposed local law to exceed the tax cap for fiscal year.
Was it, Tom, before you do that, was there any hands up to comment or not?
You know what? Earlier, Glenn's hand was up, but it's not up now.
We answered his questions.
Got it. Oh, he just raised it again.
Click on Glenn.
Let's continue this.
Oh, wait, I need a motion to continue this until
The next meeting.
our next budget meeting,
Which is
April
tomorrow.
April 27th?
April 27th.
April 27th.
Uh-huh.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do what Glenn wants.
All right.
Augie.
Okay, Glenn, you can talk.
Oh, Augie, it looks like he's muted.
Um,
Who was mute?
Oh. Click it again. There.
Glenn?
Glenn,
Okay.
Am I here?
Yes.
Here.
You're here.
Welcome. Kind of a new experience. I actually had raised my hand when you were talking about the budget restraints that we're going to be under. I look at it, it says you have three different problems. You have the immediate problem, which is your sales tax, your parking, your mortgage tax, your building permit fees are all going to be greatly diminished. Your intermediate one is you're probably going to have an in the next 1 to 5 years increased healthcare costs and pension costs, because if the stock market doesn't come back, we guarantee the pensions, and you're going to have heavier pension trouble through the state. The third problem that you're going to have is if commercial real estate does not come back, you are going to be looking at a large number of certiorarities coming at you in the next 2 to 5 years to reflect the value of commercial properties. You probably are going to lose about 20% of your restaurants probably about at least 10% of your overall business is looking brightly at the way things look right now. And with the difficulty with some of the properties that are looking to be rented in the village, you have the other problem with the high-end real estate, which you are already going to have a problem with certiorarities this year because there's been a great slowdown and reduction in the value of the homes. So those are the three ways that you have to look at it. And I think you should be honest with the employees of the village, depending on how much income comes in. If you need to get a 10% cut, I says, be honest, is look, if we only bring in X amount of village, you have to work with the employees and the unions in order to make this work. And it says, you know, I think the biggest thing that your employees would want is let's be upfront, let's all get together. It's the same thing that New York City went through when they had the MAC bonds with the bankruptcy in the early 70s. This is the reality of the numbers. If the numbers come in at you know, 10, 15% less than projected revenue, what can you do with your contracts to work with us? Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Hopefully we won't get to New York City. I lived through that one. Public hearing. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on PLD 2020. Proposed local law to exceed the fiscal year. What is that?
Who did that?
2020 and 2021. We opened this. I need to open it again, and then we can continue it until the 27th. So I need a motion to open this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, unless we want to vote to exceed the cap now, but I don't think we're there, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this public hearing. Continue this public hearing. Thank you, Willie. Until April 27th.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
the floor,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. And hopefully we don't have to use that. Pardon me. Order the bills. We have a couple of budget transfers first. Item 2A is a budget transfer from appropriate fund balance to part-time temporary overtime and equipment of $260,000 on other items, fuel, supplies, materials. Jerry, can you just give us a little overview?
Mayor, that's COVID response. That is going to set up the account for everything that we're doing to respond to our emergency declaration. The anticipation, and we were confirmed the other day that it's at a 90-10% split right now, and the state would be required to help us with the 10%, which we're trying to get a waiver from for a FEMA application, public assistance application. And so what Dan and Augie and the others have told me is that they've set up separate accounts so that we can do all of the cleaning, which are contract services, all of the truck rentals, so that we have individuals driving around singularly in the vehicles, all of the PPE that we're purchasing, everything that we're doing in response to the pandemic and to maintain our essential services and to maintain the safety of the essential employees. It would all be funded out of that account to be reimbursed by FEMA in the future.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I ask you a question? Can you clarify what's the expectation on reimbursement?
The expectations?
Yes, what is the ratio that you mentioned?
Say that again, Victor.
What is the percentage that we expect?
We're at 90% now, and we're looking for 100%. And if the state is convincing enough, we could be at 100% reimbursement.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you, Jeff, for being very proactive, protecting people in this community and protecting our employees. This hasn't been easy.
No, it's not easy. It's not
Gary,
easy.
you've really been 3 steps ahead of everyone on this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's getting a little tough right now. So
I'm sorry.
Hang in there, bro.
Yep.
So I need a motion to,
One more question, Mayor, if I go before we, and of course I support this, and that's why we have the savings account that's going to help us in this situation.
Yeah.
I trust you 100%, but there's a huge amount on services, and our procurement policy has kind of a little bit of a ambiguity, because when it says a section talks about the Board of Trustees being the one that kind of approves services beyond 10, and it explains what we should take into account when we're looking at that, if it's kind of several contracts during the year. But I don't know, for whatever reason, in the heading of contracts for public works beyond 35, the word services has been attached there. I don't know when that happened, because typically you have purchases, public works, and services, the 3 things separate. But at some point, that word services got inserted, and so it could be interpreted that services over 35 don't need RFP. I mean, beyond our 35, you would need an RFP and come to the board. And so that interpretation, I think, should be clarified. And I think you had it on the work session. We didn't get there.
Yeah.
So we can just, I think we can bring it again to work session and formalize this. But kind of, what is your take? Is 10 grand enough for services without coming to the board? Would you rather have something higher? Would you want to think about this? I don't want to constrain you. Again, we trust you, and
so
we want you to move, because there's 2 issues here. It's the services, and also for purchases, there under the general municipal law, there's an exception that you don't have to follow procurement whatsoever. But that exception is kind of a one-off, and this emergency is really a kind of unique in many ways. So those are kind of my 2 concerns. Knowing that you need to do that, this is life, and this is protecting our people, our employees, and our residents. So I don't down like I'm putting red tape, but it's just to have clarity so that we move forward and we're not asked,
So I can see what you're saying outside of an emergency declaration, but I think NICOM may have provided some guidance on during an emergency declaration that you need to do what you need to do in order to protect the public and protect the employees. And that's really our focus. That's always been our focus from March 2nd. It's been our focus. Past that, once we get past this, once the declaration is over, I can see that the conversation we were going to have that I was ready for was to attach a not to exceed to every request of the board when I come to you asking for certain things. And so we were going to have that conversation. As of right now, if you can separate, Victor, if you can separate the emergency declaration and what we have to do in order to fight against the pandemic compared to what we would do during normal circumstances, I agree with you that we should have some clarification on the ambiguous language that's in the policy.
I do understand. I do see it also. I agree with you that there are 2 separate issues, really.
Yeah.
One is the authority is the authority now 100% in your turf? If that's the interpretation, and NICOM is telling you, but more important, our attorney is okay with that. I don't disagree with that. It's kind of because you're caught beyond the classic procurement. So essentially, let's clarify that. Essentially, you can do the procurement policy is put to aside, and you do what you need to do until you have this emergency powers. That's an agreement. That what I want is we're all on the same page, right?
Yeah.
That we're all the 5 trustees. We know what we're agreeing to. I'm okay with it, but I just wanted to have it clear so that we have no questions. We know what we're doing.
Can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second,
Augustino?
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
the four,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Thank you all. And thank you, Jerry, for everything you're doing, and thank to the whole staff. I really appreciate everything that's been done here.
Thank you, Mayor. They're doing it.
Resolution is authorization to execute budget transfer to fund over budget account. So you're taking $911 from holiday decorations and you are taking it to $911 for electricity, but the electricity was used for new holiday decorations, am I right?
Right. So it's coming full circle.
So
Full
out of
circle.
one pocket and into the other.
Right.
Anybody have any questions about the $911?
No.
So moved.
Second,
Augustino?
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
the four,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the abstract of ordered vouchers. And I don't have the page with the,
It might be the last page.
what's the abstract? Give it a number.
Total on the abstract is $2,320,37.54.
Okay, 2,320,600. Okay. Does somebody have any questions or concerns? Hearing none. I need a motion for $2 million bill.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
the four,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. I'm sorry. Next item on the agenda is abstract of manual check vouchers. And I don't have that either. What is that, Augie?
That is $6,491.02.
6,491.02. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
No, it's mostly just water bills.
Okay. That's the little one. Thank you. Okay. 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 Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Augustino?
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
the four,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Thank you all. Old business. Resolution scheduling public hearing, 50-foot setback requirement.
Tom, this and a couple of the others are not really essential business.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I think they should all be postponed and just, we should limit ourselves to the essential business.
Yeah. Why don't we just hold them over and when the day comes when we can have regular meetings. Because these laws are too important and they're too big to pass in this, this hybrid that we're doing here.
But I completely agree, but I think that Victor had made some, there were going to be some clauses that were incorporated, and Victor sent an email today. So I wonder if we just want to get it in its final form and then wait to schedule the public hearings when we know we can actually have them, or the public can attend.
Can we do something? Can we do that on the next work session?
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Is that okay? I mean, yes, I think there's no urgency. I just think.
Yeah, I understand. And but I honestly haven't had time to look at that. And I don't want to just like try and rush it here.
Well, the changes didn't get into it, so I think we should discuss it.
Yeah, but I want to see
Nothing
it.
urgent.
Let's just put it on this work session and then we'll schedule the public hearing for when when life gets back to some form of normalcy.
Okay.
Hopefully not too long. Okay. So we're gonna hold that off. New business. Resolution authorizing fee charges scheduled for 2020 and 2021. We did this at the last work session.
We spoke about it at the last work session. The changes that the board requested were to not increase the fee related to the third-party challenges or interpretations of the
We're going to pick it up at another time.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at this page 8 of 10 on the version fees and charges, we show that the application for interpretation of variance remains the same. I think I inadvertently forgot to do the top 3 lines. So I guess on application for notice of appeal,
the numbers are still high. The PDF, which is not numbered, but it's the third to the last page, says that the application for notice of appeal for a 1 or 2 family home is going from 150 to 600.
Yeah, I think that was an error. That was an oversight on my part to not change that.
Well, we have to make sure that we're not.
Okay, let's do this. We'll just amend that on the fly. We'll say we're amending the resolution so the application to appeal third-party appeals remains the same.
Okay, but we don't use the word third-party appeal, so we need to say application for notice of appeal.
342.
342.
342. Yep.
For 1 to 2 family homes, for 3 to 5 family homes, and for all residential types other than 1 to 5 family homes remain unchanged.
As Nora just said, we're amending the motion, the resolution as such. Does anybody else have any other questions, or we can have a motion to accept it as Nora just amended?
So moved.
Second. Okay.
Augustino.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
Before,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Okay, resolution authorizing execution of agreement with the Southeast Consortium. For those folks who don't know, all municipalities are required to provide recreation programs and other programs to people who are disabled in some way, either physically or developmentally. This consortium is a group of municipalities who join together to provide those services and recreational opportunities to folks on a district-wide level. And it's worked very, very well for many, many years. And this is just our agreement to pay in it and to pay our share. And it's way cheaper than we had to do it ourselves. And I think it's a better program than if we had to do it ourselves. If anybody wants to look into it, it's located on the 3rd floor of the town center. So, anybody have any questions or concerns?
No, I move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, Augustino.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
Before,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Okay, the next item on the agenda is resolution authorizing contract with village attorney services. And what we are doing tonight is we are going to approve extending this contract for 5 months. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
No.
Okay, somebody please make the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Augustino.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez. Trustee Natchez,
My cell phone just died even with the charger.
We can hear you, Dan. Vote.
You need a vote.
I voted in favor, but I can't be on television or participate. I'll stand here.
That's okay.
You voted yes.
Okay.
And go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You go.
Trustee Tofor,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy,
Aye. Resolution approving Westchester Joint Waterworks project A1871 Rushmore Avenue Transite Water Main. We talked about this before. This is a project we're approving it for a local project. It's not a project that is funded by all three municipalities because the terminus points are all in the village of Mamaroneck. Any questions or concerns?
My concern is I don't like things coming after the fact.
Okay. I need a motion.
So moved. So moved.
I'll second. Augustino.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
Tofor,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. Thank you. All right, last resolution, authorizing creation of general fund account and supplemental appropriation to fund expenses for response to federally declared disaster. And this is what we were just talking about with the budget. Jerry, I don't think there's anything else to be said. This is to help our citizens stay healthy and to adjust to this vast change of life.
Correct, Mayor, and money that we will at least get 90% back from the FEMA public assistance application that we submit.
All right, any motion?
So moved.
Laura moved, 2 seconds.
Second.
Natchez second. Please go to roll.
Trustees Lucas,
Yes.
Winstrup,
Yes.
Natchez,
Yes.
Tofor,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Aye. The village attorney service, we do 5 months, right?
Yes.
Okay. Update from manager Barbario.
No, communication too.
Communication 2, anybody out there?
We have a hand up by Glenn.
Does Glenn have his hand up?
Some things never change.
Glenn,
Glenn doesn't have a hand up?
he does.
It does.
He's been allowed to talk.
All right, Glenn, go ahead. Be gentle.
I am going to be very gentle. I wish you all the best. This isn't what anybody signed up for. You're probably going to go through basically one of the great challenges of life. I do have a couple of questions. Number one, originally they were supposed to close the Boston Post Road on July 1st. Has that project been officially tabled?
That project is next year, Glenn, and there's 2021, not 2020.
Okay. Number two, US Open is pushing into September. Are they still planning to have any people actually go to it? This is a selfish question because my sister.
We don't know the answer to it yet, Glenn. We don't know the answer
yet.
No.
Okay. And finally, like I said before, I said this is a situation where you're going to have short-term, intermediate, and long-term problems with the cash flow. I think that the smartest thing to do is just be absolutely honest with both your taxpayers and your employees. It's an inevitable place to be for you. It's going to be some of the toughest decisions you have in life. But the biggest part of it is you have to make a decision. I always used to tell people that I worked with, no decision is the only bad decision. You're not going to know, but It's unfortunately has to be addressed. It's going to have to be addressed in a fairly fast fashion because some of the incomes you're losing are going to be dramatic. Your mortgage tax income, I'm sure, is got to be virtually zero for the last month. And I would basically say the same with your income from permits. So you really are talking about dramatic numbers.
Yeah.
And you're just going to need to put that contingency plan into place based on if this is what we have to do. And just as long as you're straightforward and honest with everybody, I think we can all get pulled together and get through this. God bless you, and I wish you the absolute best. And if you need any help, I'm always willing to do the best I can. The last, anybody who has a senior, friend, relative, or somebody else who's home self-isolating, give them a call. It can be lonely out there. It says, check on your seniors, check on your relatives, check on everybody, you know, not just text, actually get on the phone call. Get on the phone, give them 10, 15 minutes of your time, speak to them, and let them know you still love them. I wish you all the absolute best. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks a lot, Glenn.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Update from Manager Barbera.
Mayor, the first 30-day emergency declaration expires in 2 days. It was issued on March 16th. It expires on Wednesday. We will be renewing that emergency declaration for another 30 days. That is the first time that I have ever had to renew an emergency declaration. So it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot that we're in, but everyone's holding together and everyone's working really hard. I'm happy that our staff is so resilient, that our staff is quick to turn on a dime and really do exactly what we need to do in order to keep the public safe. We have not missed the trash pickup. We have not missed a response by the fire department or the police department. We continue to do all of the essential services. And for the people who are classified by the state as non-essential, they are extremely essential because they support all of the essentials to make sure that they're getting paid, to make sure that the mail continues to be distributed and continues to be answered, and that whatever income is coming in right now, that we're making sure that we have proper accounting of that income and revenue. There are a lot of people who are going to start to feel the loss because we're still losing 700 people a day in this state. And that's going to be the tough part. We started off with disbelief. We started off with preparedness. And wow, what do we do now? And we've been, because of the staff, a couple of steps ahead every single time. Now it starts to get heavy on our shoulders when we start to realize the loss. And it's going to come for a couple of weeks at least. Hopefully, you know, not as long as it should be, but that's the biggest part of what we're going to experience in the next few weeks. That's it. That's as emotional as you will ever get me, Mayor.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Clerk Treasurer.
Filed for the record is an executed professional agreement. Basically, this is an agreement with Springbrook to import our tax roll once the tax rate is set.
Okay, thank you.
The village attorney?
No report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we have minutes of boards, commissions, and committees, minutes of the Board of Trustees session, work session, regular meeting for March 23rd, minutes of the Recreation and Park meeting on January 8th and February 5th, 2020, minutes of the Tree Committee meeting on January 7th and January 23rd and February 27th, 2020, minutes of the Board of Architecture review meeting on March 3rd, 2020. I just want to thank all of you, my colleagues, and all of the village workers and the village staff as Jerry says, coming in every day and doing what you have to do and keeping this community going. We have had people pass away in this community. Undoubtedly, we will have other people pass away in this community. We can't stop that, but we've done everything we can to mitigate the spread of this disease in this community with the information we had at the time that we had it. I feel really confident that this community was as ahead of the curve as any small village in New York State. We continue to do that. We continue to try and communicate with our residents. We continue to try and tell our residents, how to meet this challenge. And it's the challenge of all life. I grew up with men and women who lived through the Depression and World War II, and that was the challenge of their life. And this is the challenge of all. How we recover from this and how we bounce back and how we deal with this terrible scourge. And we will get through it, and hopefully we will learn lessons from it. And hopefully, our children will remember this and make a better world where everybody has health insurance and everybody, it's more important to look out for each other than to look out for your bank account. I had a family call me today and they said, what can we do? And I said, well, it's getting bad, in terms of a lot of people being laid off. And they said, well, who do you think we should help? And I pointed them toward an organization that provides food for people in this community. And they wrote a really, really generous check that's going to keep a lot of kids from going hungry for a while. When I see stuff like that, I know we're going to be all right. It's going to be difficult days, but I really, really want to make sure, and Jerry, I want to talk to you about this later on about food giving up, that no kid in this community goes to bed hungry. There's no need. This is going to be a short-term thing, a few months. And, those of us who are lucky enough, like myself, to still be working and getting a paycheck, and those of us who have plenty of resources, there's no reason why a child or a family in this community should be hungry. So if we could take that off of the table of people who are suffering, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank all of you for everything you've done. And for the people watching at home, good night. We'll get through this. And I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Did you do to the attorney?
What?
Did you do the attorney?
They do the what?
Attorney.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Augustino.
Trustees Lucas,
yes.
All in favor. I'm sorry. All in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Good night.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Good night.
Night.
All right, good night.
Good night.
hey, thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
My pleasure.
Your computer's here.
I'm connecting to disconnect the live stream. There we go.
Good night, Cliff.
Good night.
Franklin.
I just feel bad.